Hi friends, Tracy here from the Sewing Channel. In today's video, you're going to come along with me and I'm going to show you how I get ready to make a scrappy type quilt. Now I'm not going to tell you what the quilt is just yet. That'll be the next video. But I just thought it would be kind of neat if you could see my thought process on how I gather my scraps together to make all these scrappy quilts that I make. Just a quick update on ScrapBerry Gingham Quilt Challenge. The response has been overwhelming on my ScrapBerry Gingham quilt. I have been getting texts and reports on people that are totally making this quilt as a challenge. I've even seen some preliminary pictures of these quilts, and let me tell you, I'm blown away. Now you can still get in on all the fun. Remember, the deadline is August 31st. Send them to my email. You can find my email on my About page here on my YouTube channel. I said if I get more than 10 quilters who make ScrapBerry Gingham, I'm going to make an entire video all around that quilt, and I'm going to showcase your quilts on my channel. It's going to be major fun. Anybody can make this quilt. If you're new, if you're a YouTuber, or if you're just a viewer of my channel or someone who's just stopping by. Enough talking already. Let's get busy preparing our scraps for our next scrappy quilt. The first step in the process for me is, of course, figuring out the design of my quilt and what I want to make. But I'm going to keep that a secret until next video. So I'm just going to give you the basics here. Maybe you can guess what kind of quilt I'm making as I'm preparing the scraps. I don't know. Give your best guess down in the comments. The first thing I know about this quilt is that it's going to have a ton of low volume fabrics in it. What's a low volume fabric? A low volume fabric for me is any solid white, any tone on tone white, any beige tones within the white. But for me, in this quilt, there has to be some white in it. Beige added into it is fine as long as it has white. Those are my little rules that I make up as I go. This right here I consider low volume. Even though it has blue throughout it, it still will read on this quilt as low volume. This right here, now this is one of the exceptions to my rule. It's a very, very, very light background. It's not white, but I'm going to allow it in this quilt. You see how the rules change? I know, but it's my quilt. So I can change those rules as I go. That to me is what makes quilting so much fun. I love the whole preparing process and getting all the scraps ready and fusing them together and, you know, all that. This right here is a particular favorite of mine. It has little speckles in it and it just adds so much to my low volume backgrounds. It's just like a white with some gray in through it. This one right here is interesting. It does have a white background. It even has a bit of teal and grays, and I'm going to use it as a low volume print. Even this pale green color I'm going to use in my low volume background. What I do is I grab all of those low volume prints together, like this right here in a bucket, and I sit down or stand, whatever I'm doing that day, and I trim out what I need. Now remember, I've already made up my design, which you're not going to know until the next video. So I know what low volumes I need as far as sizes go. So I have a cheat sheet right here of everything that I need, and it starts off with the low volumes up here. Now for the low volumes, I'm going to need any size width strip and any length. So that'll be nice and easy to cut and press, so I know that that's a go. I know that I'm going to need a lot of little squares in this quilt. I'm going to need 1 1/4 inches, 1.5 inches, and 2 inches and 2 1/4 inch squares of low volume fabric. So that'll be easy. I'm going to press them right here real quick, and I'm just going to make a bunch of them up because I know I'm going to need a ton. So let me show you how I process something like this really big long scrap that I have in this pale green. Well, I know I'm not going to want all of that, so I may want all of it, but not in the one big long piece. So I'm just going to fold it in half and I'm going to cut it in half right away. And you know what? I think I'm going to take it and fold it in half again and cut it. Give that a good press. Now remember, I said I needed squares and strips, so anything goes with this right here. The main reason for processing all these is because I don't have straight edges on almost all of them, and I need straight edges for this quilt. I think that's going to be a nice chunk because I really don't want a bunch of tiny pieces that I'm going to be piecing that background fabric with. I want big chunks in there, just like that blue quilt, that blue scrappy one, the Hungry Crumb Cake that I made a few videos back. It's going to be that sort of piecing. So big chunks of low volume means a faster quilt being done. But we just need to make sure that we have nice edges. So this one, I know that I may want to get some squares out of this. I pretty much need everything in the squares, so I will just fold this up. I also have a couple different rulers nearby because sometimes it's easier just to do the smaller ruler when you're going in for those little squares and such. So you might want to keep that in mind when you get all your scraps together when you're ready to cut. I need 2 1/4. Measure up 2 1/4. And then, whoop, oh shoot, wait. I forgot to cut the other end. Okay, so I forgot to cut the other end. So yeah, you want to make sure you cut. Oh no, I did. Oh, I didn't do the, All right, so I misjudged on this one. So I'm gonna go down to 2 inches on this one. There we go. Now I have 2 2-inch squares. We'll see what this one yields. We can get another 2 2-inch squares out of it. Now mind you, I don't know how many I need because it's a scrappy quilt and sometimes I just allow for that creative process to happen, so I just cut up a bunch. And I'll probably need more than what I cut up anyways, so we will go 1 1/2. Even if I have more low volume, another strip of this, I kind of set it aside because I've already cut a bunch and I just want to make sure that I have a huge variety of my low volume prints for my background in this quilt. A lot of times in my quilts, I totally run out of scraps, and I know that, and I keep that in mind, like if I'm going to the store, Joann's especially, because they will have sales all the time on their fat quarters. And so I'll skim through them and I will buy up a bunch of low volume print fat quarters. And that just helps me when I go to make these quilts. I always can pull from new stash. I can get these at like $2 1/4 or something like that. I forget now. Or sometimes they even have $1 1/4. I forget really, but it's something around that and it's a really good buy. And if I keep myself stocked in my low volume prints, I won't ever run out, because believe it or not, I have totally run out of these and I have to go back to the store and buy buy more. For something like this, I do iron out the creases first, typically. And I will just cut out a big chunk of it. I'll put this one back. And then I'm left with this, and this is a really nice low volume print. They only had one of these at the store in this print, and it's so cute, and that's probably why they were all gone. But I would have totally bought like a few of those because it's that pretty. Okay, so here I can see where the selvage was, so I may need to cut a little bit more off of the side there. And if you remember my tip from, I think it was my last video, if you're going to fold your fabric to cut it like so, make sure that the fold edge is towards you. And then lay your ruler down and line it up with a line on your ruler, that folded edge. Okay, let's go with 2 1/4 since I messed up that last one. This right here is not as square as I'd like it. So I'm going to go 2 1/4. Let's go 2. Let's go 1 1/2. And then 1 1/4. 1 1/4. See how easy that is to mess up? And now I'm left with this right here, which I'm going to make some strips from. Just like that. Split those up so that these will all be strips. And this will be nice. We can use all of these in our quilt. So this one is the 1 1/2. This was the 2 1/4. Okay, so we got some nice strips and we got some nice squares from those two. Now, a lot of times in my scraps, I'll come across something like this right here, where 2 have been sewn together and cut off of something else. Those are great because there's already 2 sewn together. So all I really have to do here is just press this and square it up. Now here I'm just taking and lining up my ruler with the seam where those 2 are sewn together. And then trimming, because this is another quilt where I do care which way the seams are going, as far as, you know, I don't want wonky blocks or slanted blocks. I want it to be in that 45-degree angle throughout the whole quilt. So there's that one right there. So that one is good to go. Now let's go on to some color in this quilt, and I'm going to deal with the pinks and the salmon colors first. The first thing I go to, once I know the sizes and things that I need for that particular scrap, I will go to my Scrap Wall of Fame over there, and I will dig through there to see if there's any that will work within this quilt. And this will go for every color that I'm about to share with you that's going to be in this quilt. I've checked there first to see what I have, and then I go from there. I will dig into my fat quarters at that point, because I'm not one that just sits on her stash. I use it if I got it. I don't care if it's a designer, if it's from Walmart, or if it's from Joann Fabrics. I use it. If I don't use that fabric, it's just gonna sit and sit and sit. So I use it up and then I refill it with new fabric. That's typically how I run my sewing room as far as fabric goes. That's why I tend to have a lot of different scraps, because I'm constantly replenishing, because I'm using So I've written down here that for the pinks and the salmon, I need 5-inch squares for this quilt. So I do have some scraps that are 5 inches, but I did have to dig into some 1/4 yard cuts that I had right here, and some partial fat quarters that I had. These are the kind of larger scraps that I have that I won't put in my Scrap Hall of Fame containers. I keep this in a bin somewhere else in my sewing room, so that way I know that I have a substantial amount of it. So all I'm going to do here is just get some of those 5-inch squares cut out. So I'm going to give it a good press. And I know I don't want too many of the same color, so I'm probably going to cut like 1 5-inch square of all of these in here. Because that's just the way I do things. I don't know. I really do enjoy a variety within my quilts. I love color, but I also love a good muted background, like the one that I'm going to be creating in this quilt. I can't wait. I can't wait to see how it turns out. So I have the 5-inch square there, and I will just fold this up, and I will save this little pink for another day. Here's another one that has some cuts into it. I mean, sometimes I cut some crazy scraps out, I know. So this right here is not going to give me what I want 5-inch wise. So I'm going to have to cut into the larger part of the scrap. And that's okay. Like I said, I don't hold back. I totally cut it. I mean, it doesn't matter, you know, what it is. And I want to make sure that my selvage is not in there because it's kind of a bulky selvage, even though the print goes all the way to the edge. I don't want that in my quilt. So I will take this and I will just fold it up, and we will save it for another day. Oh, let's see. Look at these pretty colors. I mean, these are just darling. I love it. So I can already tell here I'm not going to have enough for that. So I will just come over here. Let me cut some of this crazy off first. Save that. And I can come over here and cut a 5-inch square out of this corner. Fold this back up and save it for another day. If it's not too wrinkled in the area that I'm about to cut, I'll just go ahead and just trim it, you know, at 5 inches anyways, and then I will press it after. How many of you out there enjoy this process right here, like preparing everything and nicely pressing and get everything together? Let me know in the comments if you're like that. There's this crazy one here. See, I got crazy scraps, but only because I crazily cut them. I mean, I kid you not, I get asked all the time, how come you have such pretty scraps? And it's just because I replenish constantly. So I may have like this left over in this pile today, and I'll realize, oh, I need some pinks or something like that. And so when I go, I'll just grab a bunch of fat quarters in pink. Or if it's really on sale, like at Joann's has these really good sales on their bolts of quilting cotton. like down to $3 a yard and stuff like that, I will grab like a quarter yard of whatever I like there that day. And that's how you build up and have all this, you know, beautifully crazy scraps like I do. Scrap quilting for me is actually one of my most favorite. I love to scrap quilt. It's like I'm creating something out of nothing, and it's the way I see it and the way that I want it. Now on to some orange fabric scraps. I love orange because it's just so bright and just so fresh. In the orange, I'm going to need 3 3/4 inch squares and 4.5 inch squares. I came across this scrap right here. Now, this has been a while since I've dug into this particular print. This is one of my ultimate favorites. It's in my scalloped edge quilt. Now, I never did a tutorial on that particular scrappy quilt, but this right here is one of my favorites. It has this orange with the pink. I mean, it's totally been discontinued, I think. It's by Lacion Fabrics, something like that. I can't remember, but it was, yeah, it's just a favorite. So I'm gonna see if I can't cut a square out of this so that it makes it into this quilt. This is the last piece I have of this. I only had a scrap to begin with. I bought a bundle of these Lacion fabrics. I don't even know if I'm saying it right, but it had like a lot of florals and things like that. It was like a bag of scraps that this lady was selling, and so I bought it off Etsy, and this scrap was one of them that was in there, and I just fell in love with it. This pressed. It's just darling. I love it. Oh, the rose is just, okay. Try cutting here to cut that piece off. Oh, precious. We turn it. Let's go. Let's do the 3 3/4. Cut out that rough edge there first. Oh, so pretty. Okay, so let's go. See, 1, 2, 3 3/4. So pretty. I love that. And I don't think I'm going to be able to get anything else out of that. So that's it for that. Ooh, okay. All right, this little scrap right here, let's see if we can get, no, we can't get 4.5 out of it, so we're gonna go for 3 3/4. We have 1, 2, 3 3/4, and I've been known to not cut right, so that's why I double check. Okay, now let's get into some of these right here. This is a fat quarter. Probably I bought it at Joann's, who knows, or it came in some kind of crazy bundle that I bought offline that could be designer. I don't know, because you know what, I don't really care. I know a lot of you really only just go for the designer fabric and such, but I don't do that. I tend to go for what I really, really like, and it doesn't matter who it's from. But I will tell you, there have been times where I've bought the cheaper fabric and I was definitely not happy with it, like when I got it home and such. And it all has to do with feel for me. If it feels really cheap, then it probably is, you know, that scruffy kind of feel that's just kind of, you know, you can see right through it and all that. You want to stay away from those. I typically check them, you know, in the store. I'll feel them and whatever, but there is once in a while where I will, you know, let one get past me. So you just always want to be mindful of that, you know, if you're buying the less expensive fabric. And thank you to all of you who bought me coffees. Cheryl O, Tracy, Lori, Peggy. I appreciate you keeping me energized. And thank you to those who bought me super thanks. At 19 Betchai, Rebecca, Susan B, and Mary. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate you all. Links below you can find if you would like to support the sewing channel. Oh, this is so cute. So let's go with the bigger 4.5 here. Fold this up. Save it for another day. Okay, on to the next color. On to some yellows. For this one, we only need a bunch of 2 3/4 inch squares. This yellow's pretty. That's not gonna do it, is it? But we can see here, we can cut one out of there and out of here. 2 3/4 inch squares. Where's my little scraps at? Come on now. I honestly don't have that many yellow scraps, so that may be where I'm lacking next time I go to the store. If you've noticed, I typically just kind of press where I'm going to cut, only because I know that this is going to get thrown back in, and if I press it all now, it's just going to get wrinkled again. So I just need these corners because I will stack cut these together where I can. So this one I'll have to turn upside down because it has this corner area here that I want. 2 3/4. So I don't think I'm going to use this for the square because I just don't think the colors are bright enough. There's too much white in it. But now I can use this for the low volume. So keep that in mind too. Those are just little things that I keep in mind as I'm going through the scraps. Can it be low volume? And a lot of times, yeah, it can be. I think so. Another thing I wanted to tell you about the low volume pieces, remember how I said cut them in chunks or strips and widths, it didn't matter. Well, a lot of times what I'll do ahead of time, before I start assembling my blocks and how I want to do it, I will take 2 pieces similar in size as far as width, and I will sew those together, press those, and trim them so that they're nice and flush with each other. So that way when I get to the big long pieces within the quilt that I need coverage of that length, this one is all ready to go and has been sewn and trimmed. And that's just another tip that I wanted to share with you that I do. Hopefully it makes sense and it will help you. This quilt is going to be major fun to make. Stay tuned for my next video where I will take you through all of the ins and outs on this particular quilt. Until next time on the Sewing Channel, take care.